Good evening, everyone. I hope you are doing well. Can you please confirm if I'm audible or not? Just write it in the chat box if you can hear me. Am I audible to everyone? Okay, I think I'm audible. So now let us begin with the session. Okay, thank you so much, Divya, for the confirmation. So let us begin with the session now. So, hello everyone, welcome to another insightful session of Perspective 360 Degree where we do current affair based answer writing practice in a detailed and structured manner. So, if you are an aspirant preparing for exams like RBI, NABARD, etc., then this session is definitely going to help you with answer writing practice for the descriptive paper of phase 2. So let us begin with the discussion for today. So as you would be knowing that we are covering economic survey these days in a holistic manner. I'm trying to cover different dimensions, different themes that are highlighted as a part of this economic survey, which will eventually help you in your exam preparation and will also help you in broadening your perspective with respect to the syllabus that has been mentioned for your examination. Fine. So that's why we are discussing the different themes as much as possible. So I hope the agenda for today is clear to you. Now, if you are somebody who is new to this Perspective 360 degree initiative, let me tell you that here firstly, we give you an expected question and we are going to discuss this expected question as a part of this session. And once this session is done, you have to write the answer of this expected question within 48 hours if you want it to get evaluated by our team. Fine. So today is Friday, so you have to submit your answer before Sunday 5 p.m. if you want it to get evaluated. Fine. So I hope it is clear to you. So let us see the expected question for today, which I prepared from this report, and this is the area from where we are doing our discussion today, which is regarding the medium term outlook, a growth strategy for new India. So in the economic survey, what the government has done, the economic survey very clearly mentioned a medium term outlook strategy with respect to India, that what is the short term strategy of India with respect to the different challenges. So the economic survey has very precisely talked about such strategies and such challenges. So what I have done, I have taken these points from the economic survey regarding the strategy which the government has decided and mentioned as part of the economic survey. Fine. So we are going to discuss all the points one by one. So this is the expected question for today, that discuss the six-pronged growth strategy outlined in the economic survey for ensuring India's sustainable and inclusive growth in the medium term. How does this strategy aim to address the complex challenges posed by the current global and domestic economic environment? Fine. So this is something the question is asking, that firstly we will discuss the six-pronged strategy that has been highlighted in the economic survey. And what does this strategy aim to address? What challenges does this strategy aim to address? We are going to talk about that also. Fine. So let us go through these points one by one in a detailed manner. So before we begin that, this is the answer blueprint that you need to follow while writing your answer in the comment box and also in your examination. So you will divide your answer into introduction, body, and the conclusion. And as I always say, that you have to write your introduction within 10 to 12% of the total word limit. Fine. And the same rule applies to the conclusion also. Lastly, we have the body part, where you will write your body in the form of different headings and subheadings. Fine. So in a similar manner, you are going to write headings, then the subheadings. Under the subheadings, you will write your relevant points and you will try to substantiate these points with the help of relevant data, facts or examples. Fine, wherever possible. So now let us begin with the answer to this question. So basically, firstly, we are going to talk about what could be the introduction that we can write as a part of the answer to this question. So when we talk about the introduction, we can write that the economic survey lays out a clear plan for India's growth, highlighting the importance of a strong and inclusive economic strategy to tackle the various challenges faced both globally and within the country. So we have taken this idea from the question itself, because the question is asking about the same thing. So what we have done, we have somewhere rephrased that it has been asked as a part of the questions. The question is very precisely asking about the context of economic survey, and that is what we have used while writing our introduction also. Then we can write that in a time of geopolitical tensions, climate change and evolving economic trends, the survey presents a six-pronged growth strategy designed to ensure sustainable and inclusive development. So this is something that we are going to write in our body part. And in our introduction, what we have done, we have given a small snapshot with respect to what we are going to discuss as a part of our body. Fine. So this is something that we can write as a part of our introduction. Next, we can write that this approach builds on past reforms while addressing new challenges, which will help India to achieve its medium-term growth goals and remain resilient in a fast-changing world. So this is something we can add at the end, and which gives a brief idea regarding what this whole growth strategy, the medium-term growth strategy mentioned in the economic survey, is all about. Fine. So now the snapshot or the introduction part is clear. Now let us move on to the body part as highlighted in the economic survey. Fine. So firstly, under this six-pronged growth strategy, the economic survey talks about boosting the private sector investment. So what does it say? So the strategy emphasizes on increasing the private gross fixed capital formation. So basically, increasing the gross fixed capital formation means that we are emphasizing on increasing the machinery, then increasing the equipment, increasing the intellectual property products, all these things, so that eventually we can expand the productive capacity of our economy. Fine. So that we can expand our productive capacity with respect to our economy. And this is why the government wants to boost the private sector investment, so that the private sector can play also very important role with respect to the sustainable and inclusive growth of the overall nation and the economy. Fine. And the economic survey highlights the importance of private sector in sustaining a high growth. And what does it say? It says that the success of past structural reforms that India has brought, the different structural reforms even in our economy from time to time, be it the 1991 reforms, I'm sorry for the small error. So be it 1991 reforms, or the reforms that we brought during the corona times, or before that also in the post-independence time, all these things, the reforms that we brought, they particularly focused on the supply side. But now what India wants to do, that instead of just focusing on the supply side, we want to focus on the next generation reforms also. So next generation reforms basically means that the advanced policy reforms, basically those reforms that address the evolving changes in the Indian economy. For example, with respect to the innovation, with respect to the sustainability, with respect to the modern labor reforms, all such kind of things, which are basically the advanced policy measures. It can be with respect to the technology also. So all the different type of technological changes, or the changes and the shifts that are taking place in the market. So in order to align with that, we need to focus on the next generation reforms, so that we can translate all these changes into the actual growth. Fine. Then it also presents the data that the strategy also notes the need of an investment rate of 35% of GDP to maintain the sustainable growth level. So this is again something the economic survey is emphasizing, that we need an investment rate of 35% of GDP, so that we can maintain an optimum growth level with respect to our economy. Fine. So this is the significance of boosting the private sector investment. The next is regarding the growth and expansion of India Mittelstand. So Mittelstand is basically, it is a German term. The term has been derived from Germany, and basically this Mittelstand in the economic survey has been used to address the MSMEs. Fine. So this is the significance of this term. And what does the economic survey talk about it? The economic survey says that the MSME contribute up to a huge extent with respect to our economy. For example, they contribute around 30% to India's GDP. And apart from this GDP, they also contribute with respect to the export sector. They also contribute to the creation of employment, all such kind of things. So it becomes very important for the government to focus on this MSME sector. And what does this strategy say? This strategy talks about the deregulation of the MSME, so that there is better ease of doing business in the economy, less licensing requirements, all such kind of things, so that more and more MSMEs, the ease of doing business for the MSME becomes proper. Then it also talks about improving the access to credit to the MSME, and also with respect to skill development. And the economic survey says that we need the policy interventions at both the central level as well as the state level, so that we can regulate the MSME, we can support the MSME sector in an efficient manner. And it gives the example of, very specifically, economic survey gives the example of this emergency credit line guarantee scheme, which was basically it was given to MSMEs to support the MSMEs during the Corona time. So this is a very good example that you can always write while talking about MSMEs in your answer, that how the government played this very important role through this emergency credit line guarantee schemes with the amount of rupees 5 lakh crore. So with similar initiatives, this growth strategy mentioned in the economic survey, this talks about the role of the government to promote the growth and expansion of Indian MSMEs, fine, so that they can contribute to the inclusive growth and the sustainable development of the overall economy. Now the next point is regarding removing growth impediments into agriculture sector. Now agriculture sector, we all know that is a very important sector in our economy, because around 45% of the India's workforce is employed in this agriculture sector, fine. So this agriculture sector is very important, but at the same time, even if the contribution of the agriculture sector is very high, this agriculture sector is very much vulnerable in nature. Why vulnerable? Because this agriculture sector, the growth of this agriculture sector does not only depend on the government, from the supply side, from the policy side of the government, but also on the environmental or the natural factors also. For example, temperature, the rainfall, the soil, the irrigation, all such kind of things. And unfortunately, the Indian agriculture sector, it is facing a lot of issues with respect to the productivity. And for example, the water stress, for example, the air pollution, for example, the land fragmentation, all such kind of things, which eventually reduces or impacts negatively the productivity of the whole agriculture sector. So what does the government say? That government, this strategy says that this 6-pronged strategy mentioned in the economic survey, this says that we need to focus on the agriculture sector by emphasizing on the value addition, by emphasizing on the sustainable practices and the modern technology. Value addition here basically means by focusing on the food processing sector also, because agriculture is one sector and food processing is an application with respect to the agriculture sector. Whatever products we are getting from the agriculture sector, we can use it as a form of raw material and can eventually use it in the food processing industries. So this is basically what value addition means. Then regarding the sustainable practices, for example, the eco-friendly practices, the organic farming, all such kind of things. And lastly, the modern technology. For example, the modern technologies, for example, the usage of drone for the fertilizers, then using the drip irrigation, all such kind of things, which eventually will lead to the increase in the irrigation efficiency. And the economic survey also sheds light on the present irrigation efficiency with respect to our country, which is only 30 to 40% of the surface water, so which is basically low and a huge scope of improvement. So basically that is why this is the importance of agriculture sector, and since it is facing different issues, and that is why it is a very important part with respect to the pronged strategy, the medium term outlook strategy as mentioned in the economic survey. I hope it is clear to you. The next is regarding securing the financing of green transition. So as we know that India is also at one side, India is focusing on the MSME sector, that is with respect to increasing the industrialization in our country. But at the same time, India is also focusing on its climate change commitments that it has made at the domestic level and also at the international platforms. So India is trying to balance both this perspective as a part of this strategy. So the economic survey estimated that achieving India's 2070 net zero target. Net zero target is basically means balancing the greenhouse gases the amount of greenhouse gases that are emitted in the atmosphere and the amount removed from it. Fine. So in order to balance that, we need to achieve this net zero target, and India's target to achieve this net zero goal is the year 2070. So the economic survey says that the India's 2070 net zero target will require an aggregate investment of USD 1.4 trillion, or about USD 28 billion per year, and it highlights the need of the significant flow of international finance through the different international body, which currently accounts for only 17% of the total green financing in India. So if you are aware about the initiatives such as the COP meeting that happens on an annual basis, here you would be knowing the dispute between the developed countries and the developing countries with respect to the climate change commitments of the various countries. So we know that the developing countries, their argument is that their contribution is less with respect to the climate change that is happening around us as compared to the contribution of the developed countries. So what the developing countries are saying, that the developed countries should focus on, or they should set this as a priority to fund the developing countries or to help the developing countries to achieve their climate change goals, either through direct funding or through providing aid in order to finance different projects, or by providing them funding through the different international organization. So the various progression has taken place in that direction also, which we are not going to discuss as a part of this session because this topic itself is very lengthy. So the point is that the India is trying very well that in order to achieve its net zero target, they require a big investment, and in order to fulfill that big investment criteria, in order to fulfill it need, the international finance can play a very important role, which is basically at this point of time only 17% of the total green finance. So this should be increased so that the more and more challenges can be dealt in a more sustainable manners in order to promote the inclusive growth in our country. Fine. So I hope it is clear to you. The next point is regarding bridging the education employment gap. Now this point is also very important point with respect to as emphasized in the economic survey. So economic survey says that very important this practical data has been highlighted in the economic survey. So economic survey says that around 51.25% of the youth currently deemed employable. So this economic survey is basically emphasizing on the gap between the skill and the employment. So it is basically saying that out of all the youth that is there in our country, out of all the youth, only the 51.25% of the youth, basically around half of the youth population, only half of the youth population has the sufficient skills to get employed in the market. So you can understand the seriousness of this data, that out of the total population of the youth, only the 50% of the population is skilled enough to be employed in the market, and which is a very important issue because our youth does not have the proper skills, they do not have the proper qualifications, they do not have the proper competencies in order to get employed in the market. And this is something very well reflected through the data as mentioned in the economic survey. Apart from that, economic survey also says that the role of the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship becomes very important in order to tackle the challenges. For example, the lack of formal vocational training, as we know that formal vocational training, which has been very specifically focused upon or very specifically emphasized as a part of our national education policy, but still a lot has to be done in order to fulfill this gap, in order to fill this gap of skill and the employment. Fine. So the formal vocational gap, formal vocational training is also a very important challenge, which is currently accessed by only 2.2% of the working age population. The number is very much low. It has a huge scope of improvement. Fine. So I hope the picture is clear to you. The next point, that very important point that the economic survey talks about with respect to the inclusive growth in our economy as a part of its medium-term outlook strategy, is regarding building the state capacity and capability. So what does it say about it? That these initiatives that we have discussed above, only these initiatives, the policy formulation regarding these initiatives by the government is not enough. What requires? It requires apart from that, what is required, the another factor that is required is with respect to the capacity building. Capacity building is with respect to the implementation of the policies that have been formulated by the government. And what do we need in order to do that? We need to improve our administrative capacities, so that those people who are basically implementing the policies, no matter if they are related to MSMEs, does not matter if it is related to employment or it is related to education, it can be related to climate, it can be related to skill, whatever it is. If the government is only formulating the policies, it will always be an incomplete step, because the complete step will be when the policies that have been formulated are being implemented also at the ground level. And in order to do that, what do we need? We need to increase the administrative capacity of our nation. We need to train our employees, the better training of our employees. We need to sensitize our administration. For example, कि 5 बजे के बाद आना या फिर lunch break के बाद आना, all such type of attitude we need to fix regarding that. So in order to fix that, one of the important initiative that has been launched by the government, as highlighted by the economic survey, is the Mission Karm Yogi. What is Mission Karm Yogi? It is a very popular initiative by the government in order to train our Indian civil servants, so that we can train our civil servants and can also develop their capacities and can improve the efficiency with respect to the personal management system. So this is something, another factor highlighted as a part of the economic survey, and I hope all these points are clear to you. Now let us move on to the next part of the body, that whatever points we have discussed over here, this 6-pronged growth strategy, what challenges this strategy is going to address. So economic survey, very briefly talks about that also. So let us see what the survey says. So firstly, it talks about the global geo-economic fragmentation. So it says that if we will boost the private sector investment, if we will secure the financing for the green transition, as we saw in this previous points, the boosting private sector investment and the green transition. So if we will do that, what is going to happen? This strategy aims to, it will be able to reduce the India's vulnerability to the external economic shocks. Why is it so? Because if the private sector will also participate with respect to, let us say, the investment, then if the private sector will increase the investment, let us say it can be from the domestic industries also and from the foreign industries also through the FDI, what it will lead to? These investments will lead to increasing the employment in our economy. These investments will lead to increasing the infrastructure in our economy, reducing the skill employment mismatch in the economy. It will increase the technology in the economy. So the point is that the whole economy, the whole nation, will not only depend on the capability of the government. The private sector will also equally contribute with respect to that. So tomorrow, if under any circumstances the economy face any type of external shock, for example Russia-Ukraine war, all the oil prices hike, so the government burden is going to get reduced, because the private sector is also going to take the responsibility. So that is going to be very helpful with respect to addressing the different problems with respect to India. Then the next outcome can be with respect to the climate change and the sustainability. Then the emphasis on the sustainable agriculture and green finance directly addresses the challenges posed by the climate change. This point is very easy to understand, nothing much to explain. Very straightforward point. Let us move on to the third point, which is regarding the economic inequality. So the focus on MSMEs and bridging the education employment gap. What it will do? It will ultimately promote the inclusive growth, because these MSMEs, they are basically the small medium enterprises which are run by the small businessmen. And when these entrepreneurs will get support by the government, what it is going to happen? It is going to improve their growth, and they will be able to contribute in the economy. As I already told you that the MSME plays a very important role with respect to the GDP contribution, with respect to the employment contribution, with respect to the export contribution, all such kind of things. So eventually, when these small entrepreneurs, when their growth will happen, when their contribution to the economy will happen, it will naturally reduce, it will play important role in reducing the economic inequality in the country. And the same case is with the education employment gap also. When we will increase the education and provide them the requisite skills, it is going to reduce this gap also. Fine. So I hope it is clear to you. The next point is regarding the governance and implementation. This is regarding the mission Karam Yogi, that it is going to enhance the state capacity, and something that has been highlighted as a part of this pronged medium-term outlook strategy of the economic survey. So I hope all these points are clear to you and very much highlighted. So what I have done at the end of this is the picture that I pasted in order to, the summary of ideas, whatever we have discussed, and very specifically these things have been mentioned in the economic survey. And even if the question does not comes directly from this medium-term growth outlook strategy, you can always prefer to use these points. You can learn these points so that you can use them directly or indirectly in other answers also by recycling these points. Fine. So because these points are very much, they substantiate, they talk about very in an elaborated manner regarding the multidimensional issues. So at any point of time, you can use these issues in your other answers also. So I hope it is clear to you. Similarly, the policy focus of the short to medium term. So again, very easy points. Most of these we have already discussed. So you can use these points also in order to add value to your answers. Fine. I hope it is clear to you. Lastly, we have the conclusion. So in the conclusion, you can talk about that the 6-pronged growth strategy outlined in the economic survey is not just a continuation of the past efforts, but a forward-looking approach that addresses the current and emerging challenges facing India by focusing on boosting private investment, empowering MSMEs, transforming agriculture, securing green financing, bridging the education employment gap, and strengthening state capacity. The strategy aims to create more resilient, inclusive and a sustainable economy. So this is something, just a short summary of the whole answer. At the end, you can write this line I've taken from the economic survey in the last session also, as I told you that this is a very general line, a good statement given by the Prime Minister. This line has been taken from the motion of thanks that was given by the Prime Minister in the Parliament. So you can use this line in your different answers as a part of a conclusion that the direct benefit of Viksit Bharat is the dignity of our citizens and the improvement of the quality of life. So somewhere, directly or indirectly, you can link this answer what has been asked as a part of our question that is related to the medium-term outlook strategy. I hope it is clear to you. So now we are done with the session. So this is the question, the answer of which you have to write in the comment box, and you have to write, in order to get it evaluated, you have to write it within 48 hours. That is before Sunday, 5 p.m. I hope it is clear to you. So that is it for today. But before that, we have EduTap blog. You can read various informative articles on the blogs with respect to a different competitive exams. For example, the JAB, CAB, RBI, NABARD, SEBI, different type of competitive exams that will eventually help you in your preparation. So that is it for today from my side. So thank you so much and all the best. Fine. Chetan is saying that, sir, kindly guide us on the time limit for structuring, typing and proofreading for 10 marker and 50 marker. Regarding the structuring, I mean, if you are talking about structuring, I mean, before starting your answers, I mean, with the practice, what eventually happens is that if you are writing, let us say 10 marker question. So for this, you will if you have practiced enough, then it will hardly take around 1 minute to do the whole structuring part. So structuring does not mean that, if you are typing in the exam, then you will start writing each and every point that eventually you are going to answer. So basically it is a rough idea. Even if you want to structure in a better way, you can use at least two minutes also. 2 minutes would be, I think more than enough if you have practiced enough questions. That will eventually help you in the pre-structuring part, that is with before you have started writing your answer. Then you can write introduction and all such kind of things. And regarding the proofreading, see, all these things depend on how much you have practiced. If you have practiced enough, if you have prepared enough regarding the descriptive paper through the answer writing practice, then you should try your best to save at least 5 to 7 minutes at the before your exam gets end. Fine. So once you have answered all the questions, at the end you should keep at least 5 to 7 minutes in reserve, so that you can proofread, so that you can visit the answers in case there is any spelling mistake, any grammatical error, or any statement which you think that you want to bring any small change to that statement. So 5 to 7 or at least 10 minutes in order to do that proofreading part, that is going to help you. But if you let me tell you that if you're somebody who is a beginner, then these things, you would think that these things are very much impractical, because when you start writing answers, you will naturally take a lot of time in order to finish your answer and in order to finish your paper. So at that point of time, these things would seem to be impractical. But once you will practice the questions, once you will do enough practice in order to write your answer within the proper word limit and time limit, then naturally you will be able to save this much amount of time for before submitting your paper in the exam. So at least 5 to 7 minutes of proofreading and 1 to 2 minutes per question, 1 to 2 minutes per question before starting your answer. So this is the idea. So I hope it is helpful for you, Chetan. So that is it for today. So thank you so much and all the best. I think there are no more doubts in the chat box. If there is anything else also, Chetan, you can write it in the comment box and I will answer it. Or you can write it in the comment box and I will answer it in the next session. You can follow, either way. So I hope it was helpful for you. So thank you so much and all the best.